Today on the Topping Show, an illegal goes viral for saying that he should just have everything given to him. A church says that it is against their policy to take white refugees fleeing South Africa. A kid head-stops an opponent while playing basketball and goes viral. The EPA might finally kill the annoying start-stop tech that is forced upon us in vehicles. Nissan is shutting down 7 of their 17 plants. And Ford issues a do-not-drive order for 3 Broncos. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT, value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's a joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner, reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapters so you can mount it to any standard AR-15, like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the flamethrower button to learn more. Lastly, try to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friend, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have Nissan shutting down 7 of their 17 plants and cutting about 20,000 jobs. Now this is brought to us thanks to Chris Benson, who's a writer over at UPI.com. And here you can see the, it's not terribly disgusting, but the Nissan logo. And it says, Nissan to shut 7 plants and cut 20,000 jobs. Unfortunately, you can see some of their vehicles in this picture, so, yeah, it's a bunch of rudimentary, ugly crossovers and SUVs. They've got one good vehicle now after they killed the GTR. They've got the Nissan, well, some people call it the 400Z, but they also just call it the Nissan Z. With a twin turbo and a stick shift, it's a good combo. The one good Nissan vehicle, they don't even put this in the picture. That's a little disappointing. Chris, who wrote this article, but nevertheless, he says, quote, Japanese automaker said it will shutter 7 plants, cutting thousands of additional jobs in a second round of job layoffs after yielding millions of dollars in profit losses last year. The shakeup cuts Nissan global workforce by a total of 20,000 employees and reduced the total factories from 17 to 10 by 2027, which, now that I think about it, will they really make it to existence in 2027? That's a debate in and of itself. Now, you also have Nissan Motor CEO Ivan saying, quote, the decision to reduce the workforce, of course, was not easy, unquote. Official says it will impact Nissan staff and contractor roles across the manufacturing, sales, administration, research, and development divisions. Wait a minute, he has research and development? I don't believe that. Next, they'll tell me they have quality assurance. Do they? The rumor is they actually do. I don't think they know what a transmission is because, the thing that grenaded their reputation was the Nissan CVT transmission in the year Ultima, which was a ticking time bomb that seemed to inevitably break every time it got over 30,000 miles, which is probably the main reason people don't buy the vehicles these days, or a big contributing factor. Now, they know that they also grappled with poor sales in China and the United States and decreased consolidated operating profit of $2.78 billion to $300 million. They continue saying, quote, in the face of a challenging full year 2024 performance and rising variable cost compounded by an uncertain environment, we must prioritize self-improvement and greater urgency and speed, aiming for profitability that relies less on volume. I could not say that without laughing. He says self-improvement. Yeah. They also have a new metric program for the dealerships. It's only sales, not quality of service, not, overall value of the vehicle. It's just sales, which, granted, they desperately need because their sales are crashing like a Boeing airplane. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. I mean, how much worse can reliability get? Could it be worse than Ford? That might be the real question. They continue saying, quote, however, Nissan officials would not indicate which of its plants that it will be closing. This latest round of cuts include thousands of global jobs announced by the company in November and effectively to a collectively 15% reduction. Nissan announced it will cut 9,000 jobs and reduce manufacturing capacity by 20% on top of a 50% monthly pay cut for Nissan executives, as it pointed to its, quote, severe financial situation while the company aims to return to profitability by fiscal year 2026. CEO continued saying, quote, unfortunately, as you see the results, the size of the company is just not sustainable, and if we don't do something now, the problem will get worse, unquote. By December, Nissan was on track to create the world's third largest auto group by combining forces with Honda by 2026, but the deal broke after a mega merger negotiation failed in February for Nissan to be Honda's subsidiary company, which Yeah, that was one of the most hilarious things in automotive community or automotive discussions was Nissan thought that they would have equal say in the operations of the company, which, or I should say, have equal operations and say in what would be the new entity of Honda Nissan, which, of course not. Honda makes a reliable, darn near bulletproof vehicles that are, I would argue, still fun to drive. Fun fact: they make the most stick shifts of any car in the world, car company in the world by number of units sold. Honda Civic, oh, love that little thing. And Nissan makes mostly disposable trash that people are forced to buy because they have rudimentary or terrible credit. To Nissan's credit, I don't know if it's an awkward word or just a pun, but to Nissan's credit, their credit department, if you have a pulse or a modicum of a pulse, they will give you credit for a vehicle. I mean, it's not good because there's a high propensity that they won't be paid back, but Nissan is known for giving credit and extended to pretty much anyone, which is why you see such a high volume of them around areas that maybe don't have the best credit. But they also need sales. So I understand why they're trying to get as many cars out there as possible. They say, meanwhile, the impact of the sweeping tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump tarnished Nissan's outlook and no longer provided guidance for its income and operating profits for 2025 due to the ongoing uncertainty among American tariff policy. Now, he also said against CEO Nissan, saying, quote, he hopes for sustainability and stability and clarity on tariffs while Japan negotiates with the United States. And he said it's very difficult to plan a current volatility of the market, which, yeah. Again, it's funny. They keep wondering, why is your company going downhill? Why is it such a bad reputation? And to me, well, not only are the vehicles mostly ugly, disgusting, and boring, but it's reputation. It's not a big mystery. The real question is, do they have the resource allocation possible to actually make reliable vehicles again? That's the real question. And yeah, this is a huge consolidation from 17 plants to 10. I mean, I don't know. They're probably the number one non-EV company that people are debating when will they go bankrupt. Because I really don't see it getting any better anytime soon. And I know, like, I'm trying to think. I think I know 2 people have bought Nissans in the past 10 years. And there's one because they couldn't afford an alternative. And the 2, oddly enough, like the Nissan truck because it wasn't as expensive as like a Ford or a GM or a Dodge or a Ram, which, I mean, in terms of a price point, it is much more aggressive for a full-size truck compared to the competition. Others would argue they have to because, it's a Nissan. But let me know, what would it take for you to buy a Nissan right now? I mean, for me, it would take me basically winning the lottery and deciding that I would like to have a Nissan Z in the garage, obviously the stick shift, because, I mean, shit, that would just be a fun track toy. But again, if I think of a daily driver, I mean, I love a Honda Civic Si, so I would never sell her. I mean, I'm never getting other Nissan vehicles just for reliability alone. And obviously, they also depreciate like a rock. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the Cultural Proud podcast, you have an illegal alien going viral for saying, just give him anything, which is an interesting theme. I believe this is actually recorded in the UK, which many would argue is indistinguishable from the countries that the people are coming from. But nevertheless, this is also credited to End Wokeness, in which, well, he simply quotes the refugee, or the illegal. And we'll just play that without too much further ado. It's about 30 seconds long. So without too much further ado, again.
Why should English people pay for you to have a house?
Maybe they give me house, they give me anything I can need, they give me.
Just give it.
Yeah.
Why?
Because people in England is perfect.
Oh, so you think we're all rich people?
No. Politicians have robbed not just us, but people in other countries as well, where the people who actually work the hardest seem to get the very least in life. Well, not all the time, but sure does feel like that way when the United States, especially when you have income tax, sales tax, alcohol tax, tobacco tax, gasoline tax, property tax, telecommunications tax, got pay tolls. Then you also have capital gains tax, short-term capital gains tax, long-term capital gains tax. That was just off the top of my head. There are so many taxes. If we were to actually sit down and calculate how much of every dollar we earn do we get to keep, it would be so depressingly small. There may very well be a type of revolt. Maybe some more people would vote libertarian, but nevertheless, we actually don't do that mathematics, unfortunately, though we should. And we see this theme, I mean, it seems to be going across continents and countries where the people who are, working like hell and paying taxes, well, yeah, they end up not having much. I mean, shoot, someday I'll be able to buy a house, hopefully, before I die, in theory. But let's go to the comment section. Now, one of the first ones comes to us thanks to Gunther Eagleman. He says, quote, "Time to stop funding these people who take my tax money," getting 406 likes, which I agree. But in this case, again, this guy, I believe, is in the UK, which, granted, you could argue they get our free money because we basically protect them for free, much of the European Union, because we spend an increased or a greater amount of our GDP on the military than any other country. And we have the deals of, hey, you guys, get invaded, we'll bail you out. And historically speaking, I think last time a country actually helped us. But nevertheless, you have Gunther Eagleman saying that. You also have Nick Sorter saying, quote, "Nah, go after yourself," getting 377 likes. Paul Zupa says, quote, "Illegals will take it all if you let them," getting 69 likes. Barefoot Pregnant says, "Borders meant something, and so did citizenship," getting 11 likes. True, although these days it seems to actually be more of a worse thing to be a citizen than to not. I mean, the U.S., if you're here illegally, at least when Biden was in charge, you got free cell phones, you got free room and board, free healthcare in places like California. You also got free income. I mean, shoot, there's a lot of things you get without giving really anything at all. You have voted for this, saying, quote, "Imagine thinking a country owes you a house just because you showed up illegally. This is insanity we're dealing with," getting 243, 49 likes, going up like an NVIDIA stock years ago, not now. You have David Santa Clara saying, quote, "That's literally all of them. They're not here to improve our countries. They're here to exploit them," getting 768. I get 769, 84 likes. Jeez Louise. That's going up really fast. Yes, Western Decline saying, quote, "Suicide empathy is killing Europe." And it's a quote that says, "Europe must walk away from the suicide empathy policy," getting 90 likes. You have Mirthful Moments saying citizenship is not a right. It's a quote from Donald Trump, apparently, saying, quote, "Immigration is a privilege, not a right, and our safety to our citizens must come first without question," unquote. And that got 55 likes. Sarah Rose says, "A plane to get the F out is what you need," getting 243 likes. Bowtire, interesting, says, quote, "Flooding a country with unskilled 60 IQ males. What could go wrong?" 869 likes. Scrolling down more and more. Instead of the infamous painting where man stands up and says, "Give me freedom," well, you have someone saying, "Give me anything I need, give me." And he's been painted to look like the man, the refugee, getting 274 likes. Scrolling down more and more, you have the undercurrent saying, quote, "I cannot fathom that I would even break in somewhere, then make demands, get applauded. Meanwhile, veterans sleep on sidewalks and taxpayers foot the bill. What a deal," getting 65 likes. Someone has a new noun and says, "Gimmigrant." This is from Hollywood Resistance saying, quote, "Gimmigrant, a person who comes to a different country in order to live there permanently and live there free, claiming all benefits paid by taxpayers and have no intention in working or abiding by the laws of that country. If they don't get their own way, they play the discrimination or race card," getting 49 likes. Let's see, scrolling down more and more. Not seeing too many contrarian comments here. Western Decline also says, "And somehow we are considered racist to prefer white Southern African farmers who are willing to work, pay taxes, and not demand everything for free," getting 25 likes. It's also referencing one of those viral stories past couple weeks where people who were actually having their lives threatened and taken, they came to the U.S., from South Africa, claiming to be refugees, and Trump granted that to them. Florida 1 says, quote, "What he needs is a one-way ticket back to the country he came from," getting 23 likes. So, and again, I think a lot of citizens across the globe feel this way, especially taxpayers. The real question is, will anything really stop what I suspect is the globalist or, the politicians who have sold us out decades ago, both on the left and the right? But let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have a church, well, I should say, quote-unquote church, leader saying it's against their policy to accept white refugees from Southern Africa. This is brought to us thanks to End Wokeness, in which he says, quote, "Episcopal Church Bishop Sean Rowe says it's against what we stand for to help white refugees from South Africa," which, if you listen to him, he also sounds more like a politician than an actual leader of a church, which I believe is one of the contributing factors why so few people go to church these days, because, yeah, they're mostly just, well, I'd say glorified political areas and very little to do with actually teaching what the actual Bible stood for. Now, thankfully, it's only 29 seconds of insufferability, though it might feel like an eternity. We shall get through it together.
We can't be ourselves. we can't be ourselves in the Episcopal Church and take the step of resettling white Afrikaners from South Africa. Our church has a long commitment to racial justice and reconciliation, and we have historic ties with the Anglican Church of South Africa. Desmond Tutu is a part of been a partner in was a partner in this work for us. So we're just not able to take this step. It's not in line with anything that we're about, and we.
Yeah. Why? I wonder why church membership is down. Yeah, guys like him. And it's been pretty viral. Got 2.2 million views as well as 15,000 likes. One of the first comments come to us thanks to Gunther Eagleman saying, quote, all political, time to take the tax exemption away. Getting 3.5 thousand likes. Yep. One of the reasons so many churches are so cowardice and they actually traditionally stayed away from anything political that would be, I would argue, be identified as libertarian or right-leaning because they're scared crapless about losing their tax exemption. Matt Walsh rallied about this years ago, and I think it is true. A lot of churches sold out everything just so that they would appease the U.S. government and not talk about certain topics in exchange for, that tax exemption. One of the reasons I'm so pessimistic about most churches these days. Paul Zupa says, quote, racial justice. How about helping white people from South Africa who are being prosecuted because of their race, getting 991, making 992 likes. Chuck Costello says, quote, WTF, getting 372 likes. Libercat Media TM says, quote, but add some melanin, any melanin, and they will take them and flood our country with them. The sheer and utter hypocrisy of these clowns, getting 278 likes. Let's see. We also had Mirthful Moments say, quote, this. Why is the news freaking out about 50 white farmers from South Africa being granted refugee status? The left is fine with 20 million third world fake refugees coming, but the leftists object to real refugees fleeing violence. Is this because they're white? Getting 895, 902 likes. Whoa, it's got to be even more. We also have Crazy Vibes saying end racism. It's a picture of a white family, so it's not a modern commercial, that's for sure. And it says, white people, the only race you're allowed to legally discriminate against, getting 372 likes. Captain Dreamer is one of the top liked comments, saying, quote, Trump basically baited them into exposing that this is always about great replacement and never about refugees or human rights. I got 7.5 thousand likes. I thought you could make it 7.6. Nevertheless, Cyber Chief says, quote, this gentleman should be compelled to articulate what they stand for. That helping white people conflicts with. As a tax exemption church charity, this is unacceptable. I expect an investigation made from the House GOP. Okay, 1.6 thousand likes, which, yeah, the House GOP, I'm not sure what they're good for. They just voted against another pro-gun bill. Let's just say I'm pretty skeptical that they'll ever do anything. There are a lot of useless rhinos collecting paychecks these days. We also have TD 1973 saying, quote, no big deal for the Episcopal Church, like the Methodist Church and the Presbyterian USA Church. They're all dying on the vine. The offer got their number one priority for saving souls and moved into political arena. The clergy have sold their souls for secular progressive justice. Getting 1.3 thousand likes. And let's see here. Crazy Moments also says South Africa is about to become Zimbabwe. And then it says South Africa, F around and find out. White farmers currently produce 95.3% of their corn, 98.7% of their wheat, 97.6% of their cotton, 97.2% of their citrus, 99% of their potatoes. I don't want to say it feels a little racist. The white folks make all the potatoes. The Irish too? Kidding. 91.4% of their tomatoes, 96.9% of their soybeans, 95.8% of their poultry, 66% of their cattle, and 89% of their wool. And that got 367 likes. Kim vs. Newsom, trophy wife, says, quote, why doesn't he just chant kill the Boer like the rest of the genocide of South Africa? Maybe he can switch places with them in the name of equity. Getting 1.3 thousand likes, which, some of the political leaders in South Africa are literally calling for the death of white folks over there. Let's see. We also have the right axis saying, quote, apparently compassion comes with a DEI checklist. Are you suffering? Not enough. Are you white? Too bad. When churches turn away actual refugees because of their skin color, it's not theology, it's critical race theory investments. And you have a little comic strip, and it's called, ABC is called Woke Prime the Channel, and as a priest with a LGBTQ banana, I forget what the acronym is these days, a cross with a rainbow on it, and the white folks say, what about the white family fleeing South Africa? And the priest goes, that's not what we stand for. And the guy says, that's Marx, not Jesus. And I got 1.4 thousand likes. Is this real? Suzanne says, quote, they should stop calling themselves a church and just announce what they are, Marxist cult. One of the Marxist cult's website is the Episcopal Church. They don't say where it is, but it just says it unveils their logo, but it's been changed in color scheme. Getting 95 likes. It is hilarious to see all the people upset about this. All these refugees who, I mean, actually real refugees, but we'll see if they actually realize their hypocrisy. Harry also says outrageous but not unexpected from the woke Episcopal Church. And there's a woman priest with a trans flag sash and a bunch of people with the same t-shirts, and they have what used to be an old beautiful church made of stone, and then they have the Pride Progress flag with the asexual logo. They updated it yet again. Whoever is making flags is really making a killing these days. I chose the wrong business model. The flag business is doing great. That got 58 likes. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, a lot of people are referencing the new Pope. We'll see what he does. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have a kid head-stomping an opponent while playing basketball after he fell and going pretty viral. Now, let me see here. It's brought to us thanks to Gaina Fauci. He removed his pronouns. I thought his pronouns were prosecute Fauci. I actually used to respect his pronouns, but they appear to be gone. Nevertheless, Mr. Gaina Fauci says, quote, why does this keep happening so much? It looks like a maybe middle school basketball. And it looks like it's at some type of school. It's an organized event. They got the fancy uniforms. And without too much further ado, it's about 12 seconds. All right, so the comments get pretty racial, so I'll delineate that if you're just listening on the Apple podcast or one of the audio podcasts. The one child that was dribbling the ball and caught it looks like an Asian boy. Then an African boy bumped into him. Oh, we can rewind that. Let's see here. Oh, inaccurate. African-American boy went up and grabbed his jersey. Appears to push him to the ground. Continue to grab the jersey. Starts stumbling over him. Oh, did you catch that? And look at that. Another opponent, slightly taller African-American boy, goes and stomps the Asian kid in the head. Jeez Louise. And I was going to say, the ref... I was going to say the... Oh, there we go. The ref finally wakes up and gets off his rear keister and then, takes the perpetrator away. Way overdue. But yeah, the stopper will probably set up a gifts and go get $500,000. I'm only partially kidding. And this went pretty viral. Got 870,000 views and 14,000 likes. One of the first comments is coming from Nick Sorter saying, quote, where's the father? Getting 694 likes. Gaina Fauci responded saying, quote, great question. Still, this is inexcusable by the kid. I had no father growing up, was dirt poor and in fights a lot, but would never even consider doing something like this while playing sports, or even at all for that matter. Getting 494 likes, which, yeah, that's, I think, a good highlight, or perhaps the accurate highlight of the cultural decay in the United States. I mean, shoot, back when we were growing up, everyone got in fights, or everyone with an ounce of testosterone. You get in fights. You maybe throw some punches, you push each other. As long as the two people are equal in size and about equal strength, that's just boys being boys. It happens. But only a real piece of crap or piece of scum would stomp someone on the head once they're down. And culturally speaking, I'd say we've seen, maybe it's just anecdotal or maybe it's psychosomatic or in my head, it appears that we've seen an increase in frequency in the past about 18 months especially. Now you also have Ron White saying, quote, I played a lot of sports and would never consider stomping someone's head into the ground. How does that even enter one's mind? That got 4.9 thousand likes. Gaina Fauci said, same here. I played very violent sports and was about as competitive as humanly possible, and I never once thought about stopping someone's head, getting 1.9 thousand likes, which, I mean, and no one died, so it's okay to joke about it a little bit, but like, basketball, it's a kind of a physical sport. I'd say, something more physical would be like, football or rugby, but nevertheless, I mean, basketball, you usually don't see this type of violence. Depending on where you are, you usually don't see this type of violence. I mean, you might see some push each other and shove each other. Sure. And if you're an a-hole, you'll trip. Or LeBron James, you'll cry, pretend like you're hurt. Now you also have Becky Lynn saying, quote, head stomps and kicks should be an automatic attempted murder charge every time, regardless of the actual injuries received. Making that would stop these animals, and by animals, I'm referring to people who kick and stomp heads, not making a racial remark. They got 3,000 likes. I mean, you could do that, but again, when we see these instances, overwhelmingly in terms of the volume of when it's happening, they're youths. So they're under 18. So, I mean, they would be charged with maybe, it wouldn't be homicide, or, it wouldn't be like they wouldn't be eligible for the death penalty. People think they're going to get prosecuted really hard. I mean, you can increase the prosecution and the amount of penalties, but in terms of like actual charge them for like manslaughter or attempted murder, it's like they might go to juvie for a couple more years. Now, you also Garrett Shininsky saying, quote, lack of consequences. It won't change until people quit being soft on bad behavior because of skin pigmentation, getting 205 likes. Which a lot of people are highlighting the discrepancies, and seem to be seeing this more and more in the United States between consequences given out based on someone's race. Which, again, I can't help but think if Martin Luther King Jr. were to come back alive, he'd be utterly disappointed because, he always wanted men to be treated by their actions and not give a damn about their race, which unfortunately seems like the United States focuses a lot of time focusing on, the melanin in your skin, which I would argue all that matters is judging a man by his character and his actions. You also have Cherry Show saying, quote, the opponent team said that the teen did a stomping had received to help. Wait, what? The opposing team said the teen that did the stomping has received help to control his emotions. They say Bay Area 13-year-old stomped on head, leaving player with concussion. The defending player should be in juvenile detention, getting 52 likes. Yeah, he should be in juvenile detention. Yeah. Again, this wasn't an accident. He stomped on a kid's head when he was down. That's just piece of shit behavior, pardon the French. Christopher Adamo saying, quote, better question, who taught this generation to believe that they are justified to behave this way? Getting 436 likes. Good question. Jason Francis, Libertarian Patriot, saying, quote, head kick, yikes, I'd be in jail if that happened to my kid, which is sad because I shouldn't have to go to jail to deliver some justice here. Precisely why this BS thrives in our society. Spoiled, undisciplined youth men full of testosterone with no correction. Getting 845 likes and pretty good analysis of the situation. Yeah, when you have a society with no consequences, you have places like San Francisco, California, and Minnesota where, what was it? Last week, there's a restaurant owner who was robbed multiple times because the perpetrator was let out of jail 50 times, and yet he was still roaming free because they like crime. They do. They just want more of it. Jay says this idiot belongs in prison, getting 586 likes. It's going down more and more. Robert Wilson has a picture from a post of someone by the name of Kimberly Klayak saying, quote, if your 13-year-old is out stabbing people, carjacking Uber drivers, or running around with guns, please know you're a terrible parent. It's you, not the police, not the politicians, not the teachers. It's you, just you. Getting 715 likes. And you have a bunch of racist memes, which are too distasteful to actually talk about. So we'll see. a lot of people are bringing up to the point, maybe this is a single mom household, which statistically speaking happens at a greatest percentage in that specific African American community. And I was going to say pretty much every time, well, not every, I would say most studies show that kids are worse off when they're raised by a single mom. Then you need some discipline in your life, and traditionally that's most well handed out by the father. And you see this along all races in terms of every time a child is raised by a single mom, doesn't have a father figure in his life. It's just they do not turn out as well as when a child grows up in a nuclear family, which I would also blame the government because they're the one who incentivized single motherhood with the handouts and incentive mechanisms like straight up EBT and cash. There's a lot of incentive mechanisms. It's even more disturbing when there's actually more of an incentive mechanism to be a single mother than have a father in the home because the government will give you so much money, which is a perverse incentive. And again, is why we see such a overwhelming multiple of the frequency of this happening after the government started giving out handouts. But I hope things get better soon. I do think if you actually got rid of those handouts and those, those freebies, you would see a decrease in the frequency of single motherhoods and you would see more nuclear families, which overall, I do think a child is best raised with when you have a mom and dad in the household to raise and guide them. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the political part podcast, you have the EPA might just get rid of that crap they forced upon us, known as the stop feature in vehicles. Another Trump win as we get more deregulation, perhaps. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Motor1.com, and specifically, this is credited to Jeff Perez, saying, quote, the EPA vows to fix most cars' annoying feature. The dreaded stop-start function found in most modern cars is getting a second look from the EPA. Which, yeah, one of the reasons our cars suck these days is because of the EPA. One of the reasons they're so unreliable, EPA. Believe it or not, back in the day, the Jeep was actually a reliable vehicle. Long time ago, that straight six engine, that was darn near bulletproof. But the EPA hates emissions, unless you're in India or China. They can do whatever they want, of course. So you had to get that crappy engine thrown in there. And to this day, one of the most unreliable pieces of junk on the planet is the Jeep. Though the culture is so strong around the brand, people still buy it, surprisingly. And yeah, one of the reasons I would never want a modern car is the stupid start-stop button, where it's a quote-unquote feature, where if you're blessed and you have a car that does not have this crap, simply put, when your car stops at a stoplight, it turns off the engine. In some cases, turning off the AC. Yeah, because it'll save a little bit of gasoline, and it'll do a little less emissions. However, any mechanic with a modicum of intelligence will tell you that's so much worse for the engine. Just like comparing someone to running a marathon and not stopping versus stopping and starting and stopping and starting. You're putting more wear and tear on that engine because you're having it doing the cylinder deactivation. Some cars, like GM, the ultimate example of unreliability, they'll have the car that actually will deactivate some cylinders when you're driving it, so a V8 will become a V4, which is an abomination in of itself. But yeah, it's just more complexity in the engines, and it wears down more quickly, and really just annoying as hell. Thankfully, the third market or aftermarket prevails, so again, not legal advice, but there are ways to bypass this factory-built crap, which again, only exists because these automotive companies are bullied by the EPA. Now, diving into the specifics of the article, they say, quote, automatic start-stop is arguably the most annoying feature of any new car. It essentially shuts off your engine for short periods as long as your foot is on the brake, while keeping basic functions like air conditioning and radio running. Sometimes, I'll never forget the dumbest car ever, the Honda Fit, which Honda usually makes great cars, they actually did turn off the AC because of this feature. Yeah, let's just say one of my friends moved to Texas, quickly sold that vehicle, because that is the definition of insufferable, not having AC in Texas in your car. Now, you also say once you let your foot off the brake, the engine then kicks back on. Automakers introduced this function in an effort to improve fuel economy, but the EPA wants it to stop. The head of EPA, Lee Zeldin, sent a post on X, formerly Twitter, saying that an agency is fixing technology that everyone hates. Which, yeah, again, that dreaded, if you see that button in a vehicle, you know it's going to suck. Not all the time, but there's high propensity, which is sad because even the Honda Civic Si was kneecapped with that button. Again, thankfully, there's tech you can plug in and bypass this, not legal advice, but you shouldn't have to do that to a car that is yours and your own. Now, he says, quote, start-stop technology where your car dies at every red light so companies can get climate participation trophy. EPA will approve it and everyone hates it, so we're fixing it. Which again, God bless deregulation. If they can get rid of this crap, modern vehicles might be a little bit better. That'd be so much nicer. Imagine not having to press that button every time you get in your vehicle, or not having to buy a $100 accessory to plug into your vehicle and bypass that crap so you don't have to worry about it. Now they say, quote, start-stop technology isn't new. It's been around since the 1970s and grew more popular in the 1980s. But it wasn't until the mid-2000s that the auto stop start really took off in the US. Although it was never technically mandated by EPA, automakers who did implement the start-stop in their vehicles would receive carbon credits under the Obama administration. And I did mispronounce it just to be in a futile attempt to be funny. Now, again, this is another example of, legally and technically they're not forcing upon us. Just like how technically they're not forcing companies to make EVs. They're not forcing you to stop making gas engines. However, it's a de facto ban, just like this was de facto forced upon us, because in this case, they get carbon credits. Just like with the EVs being forced upon us by automakers, they're forced to make them because of fleet mandates or fleet averages and emission averages. Simply put, if you have a fleet of vehicles, you have to have a certain arbitrary number the EPA pulls out of their rear, otherwise they get fined. Ford almost had to pay, was it $1.7 billion because their fuel economy average for the fleet wasn't up to the EPA standards. The same thing happens with emissions. So it is a de facto ban on the gas engine, which I would argue, if you want a car that actually lasts more than 10 years and it actually has the right to repair, gas engine beats EV 100 times. No, a gajillion times or more. Now, going back to the specifics of the article, they also say, quote, currently around 65% of new cars sold in the US have automatic start-stop function according to Axios. That's up from an estimated 60% in 2020. Ouch. Annoying as it may be, according to now deleted proper paper by the EPA, automatic stop-start helps reduce fleet-wide CTO emissions at a rate of about 2. Oh yeah, again, it's the fleet emissions by 2.2 gallons a mile. Yeah. That's great. Now your vehicle is going to die early because of this crap. A second study by the Department of Energy showed automatic start-stop yields real-world improvements in emissions and fuel savings. Yeah, but if you're paycheck to paycheck, do you give a shit? I'm part of the French, but because the government steals so much from us, again, Republicans and Democrats with all the taxes, a lot of people are just trying to make it paycheck to paycheck. And heaven forbid, when your car has an issue, it costs a pretty penny to fix it. When your car prematurely breaks because of additional wear and tear, I don't think they really care about extra couple gallons of smog in the air, especially when relative to the globe, it's nothing compared to India and China manufacturing. But I partially digress. Now, you say the SAE International estimates that cite driving an automatic stop-start equipment yield savings as high as 26%. Unclear why Zeldin and the EPA plans to quote-unquote fix the start-start technology rather than simply doing away with it entirely. Which again, that's what they should do. The EPA would likely receive more information in the next few months. The good news is that there's already a fix for automatic start-stop. They can do it at home. Just turn it off. That is such a Motor1.com. Just turn it off. I shouldn't have to do that crap if I own the vehicle. Every time you get in, you gotta click that stupid button. That was the dumbest thing about the Chevy. What was it? When I did work in corporate America, I had the somewhat privilege of getting a company car. I say somewhat privileged because you had to write a check to the company because it wasn't the base Ford Focus. I got the Ford Escape, which is, the fancy way of saying the Ford Escape. And it had this crap. Allegedly, there's a way to bypass that. Of course, I would never do that. What was it? That was 10 plus years ago. Who gives a shit? So, yeah, I was going to say you can bypass that crap by plugging, certain things you can do with the vehicle. But yeah, when I first got it, every time you get in the vehicle, you got to click that stupid button. So you have to deal with that stupid thing turning off every time you get to red light. Yeah. Now, scrolling down, one of the top comments comes to us thanks to Nick Kadiri saying, quote, this is Trump. Ooh, interesting. Contrarian statement. Quote, or perhaps this is Trump meddling in every aspect of American life because of his unfounded beliefs like plastic straws. Start-stop should be required in every car. This is communist. But it should also come with a consumer override. If you want to pay more for gas and pollute the air while sitting at light, fine with me. But benefits clearly outweigh the convenience. I can't believe how much political influence has stepped into everything we know. This crap only exists because of political influence. The most regulated thing we buy in the United States, I actually believe more than pharmaceuticals, are automobiles. I mean, Elon famously said there's like a room of file, or like literally a room of files for all the regulations of the auto community. It's insane and asinine. And yeah, I would argue most of it, it's not, I always joke that government, I tell people the government, they don't make cars for you, they make cars for the government. Because they really do. Because they know you're forced to buy it. You have to get one. The only way you can get a car from another country is if it's 25 years old. Or you get a showcase or exemption. But again, that's a very small sample size. Now, Ghetto Princess responded saying, quote, 90% of people hate auto stop, start, and turn on. And every time they start the car, not to mention it ruins your starter by literally frying it to the start quicker. There's no logic to having it run if only small groups of people actually keep it on. It's actually more of an inconvenience than anything. Precisely. And also, it increases the cost and complexity of the vehicle. Which again, I'm an old soul. I want my car to be really, really simple so it's easy to fix and it'll last longer. I mean, shoot. I would argue the only modern convenience I really appreciate is heated seats, which you could debate are not modern because I believe Cadillac had that patent in the 50s or 60s. The specific year eludes me at the moment. But yeah, other top comments comes from Damien saying, quote, the annoying problem is that you have to turn off the start-stop every time you start your car. Yes, making it just impossible to turn off permanently. Again, you can with the third-party gear. He says, the best mod I did in my Golf GTI was buy an OB11 and permanently disable the start-stop. Worst feature ever. This guy's got it. He's thinking right. The only positive that cars equipped with start-stop have a stronger AGM battery. Should last longer than conventional batteries as long as they're not using that start-stop. So a couple more 10, 20 comments. This is one of the most commented article on Motor1.com in the whole year. Just saying something. Trying to see one or two more. Any contrarian ones. Mark says, this doesn't have anything to do about saving the environment, not carbon emission. It's about added expense to the overall cost of the car, ownership, and environment. Yep. So hopefully they just make it a law that says you do not have to put all this crap in a car. They actually will actually make cars that last longer. But I'm a little pessimistic, but who knows? Maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Let me know. Have you ever seen one of these in your vehicle? And I feel sorry if you do. If you have that, do you actually, how annoying is it to press that button every single time? I did that for about 3 or 4 weeks when I had my corporate car, and I hated it every single day until I fixed the problem. It's sad. I mean, even a Honda Civic Si, which definitely shouldn't have this crap, the newest Gen 10 has this in their vehicles, which is ridiculous. And hopefully they'll fix that with the Gen 11, but we'll see. Let me know in the comments because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Ford Bronco. Well, they're issuing a do not drive for about 3 Broncos. This is also brought to us thanks to Motor1.com, specifically Brian Silvestro. He says, quote, want a 2-door Bronco with a V6? It'll cost you. The new, oh, actually, where is that? I don't know why the URL changed. Oh, there we go. Apologies. Ford issues do not drive order for exactly 3 Ford Broncos. A trio of Broncos left the factory with a suspension that could detach from the frame, increasing a risk of a crash. Fine work from the union, the United Auto Workers. They are hard at work. It's funny because, look at the cars that are the most unreliable. They're all made by Union. Interestingly enough, the cars that are the most reliable are technically Honda, Toyota, Tesla. You can say what you want about Tesla's lack of visual appeal, and also not lasting 10 years because it's an EV, but nevertheless, the recalls, they are pretty bad. Yeah, there's a Ford Bronco, which at least they look pretty, which they kind of have to. They're going to spend most of their time on the back of a trailer being towed, so gotta at least look good. So they say, quote, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration announced it issued a do not drive warning to owners of precisely 3 Ford Broncos over loose suspension bolts that weren't properly tightened down at the factory. How do you mess that up? Oh, geez. This could allow the front lower arm control to detach from the frame, increasing the risk of a crash. The problem first came to light when a customer complained to a dealer in April about a loud audible pop noise when turning at full lock. Upon inspection, the dealer discovered all nuts holding the lower control arms to the frame were loose. High quality. Friendly reminder, Ford has had 40 recalls in 2025. Maybe this this is technically since it's technically a recall, I don't think. By the actual definition, they say, quote, how does a Bronco leave the factory with loose bolts? Well, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's recall report, the Bronco in question failed an alignment test at a plant before manually being approved by someone Ford calls it, quote, so it failed. Let me get this right. It failed and it was manually overridden by someone at Ford calls a quality leadership systems operator. That's hilariously ironic job title for approving something that is, again, not reliable. Though you could argue that this person does that every single day on every single Ford product, understandably. You say, as such, no one confirmed that Bronco's control arm were properly aligned and the bolts to the frame before it left the plant. Ford says this mistake could have affected a total of 4 Broncos, making this a very rare problem. One of the affected SUVs, one was fixed prior to the recall being issued, meaning 3 in the field still need to be examined. Despite the small number of Broncos affected, the recall spans both 2024 and 2005 model years. Ford says it's reaching out to owners by phone, email, and mail, instructing them to avoid driving their vehicles. That'll be towed to a dealer free of charge, where a technician will inspect the control arm fasteners and tighten and replace them as needed. The vehicle's alignment will also be checked and corrected as needed. If you think you're one of the 3 remaining Bronco owners with an affected truck, stop driving your car and check your VIN against the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration database. And check your phone. Odds are Ford is currently blowing up and telling you not to get behind the wheel. Which, geez Louise, Ford, how are you still in business? Well, their stock is doing as good as their performance of their vehicles. Not financial advice. Let's just say it's not doing great. At least they paid dividends to do one thing. But yeah, what was it? Ford spent, I believe, $840 million or $850 million Q2 last year doing warranty work. Yeah, they try to keep focused on making magical EVs and new cool tech. Well, just keep it simple. Just make a reliable vehicle that lasts more than a couple of years. And again, this is one of the few vehicles. I mean, Ford killed a lot of their cars as subcompacts, so they only make, for the most part, SUVs, trucks, crossovers, which is again where most of the profit margin is. The automotive community understand why they went that direction, but yeah, one of the few. I mean, your performance cool SUV getting, was it the 6th or 7th recall technically? I know it's a small sample size, but again, they really should have someone in charge of quality assurance doing something. So I gotta say, your beloved Bronco that so many people love, and again, they sell a fair amount of them, having yet another recall related to them, Gotta say, Ford, you are certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, try to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so you can click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.